Fair value gaps are super easy to understand and one of the most powerful confluences in quarterly theory. I personally use them every single day and I suggest everybody else to do the same. They are created when price moves too quickly in one direction, leaving a gap behind. In that gap, there are unfilled orders that price needs to retest. We expect price to come back into that gap and create a support zone after we fill those levels. Then price is able to continue onwards to withdraw. Looking at my Instagram, you can literally see that I use the fair value gaps constantly. Right over here, I use the gap in order to get this perfect entry. And then right over here, again, use the gap for this top tick. Here's the 15-second. Again, the 15-second gap was used. Again, this is Wednesday. Again, the gap was used. In this case, I did not use a gap. That was Thursday. And then once again, I used a fair value gap on that Friday. Here it is on the 15-second. And then right over here is another example of using the gap. And the gaps are a very simple confluence to use, but they go very deep. There's a lot of levels to it, and as you progress through quarterly theory and as you progress through my teachings, I'm going to teach you all of the necessary progressions for the fair value gap. One of the main things that I would like you guys currently to be looking at is always have the middle line on, because as you get better into fair value gaps, you're going to be looking at the top and the bottom of the gap separately. And for this reason, it's always nice to have this line and just get used to noting it. And in most cases, a very smooth fair value gap will hit the middle line, which is also called CE, and then it would bounce right off. So just like in this example, this is the very typical use of a fair value gap, and also the most powerful one, because a fair value gap goes all the way, if price goes all the way through the gap, like for example in here, it closed, oh actually no, this is very similar to it. Right over here is a fair value gap, pretty much. This one right here, right, price went all the way through it, and then you can see we just chopped around. It wasn't as crispy. But then over here, it hit the middle, and then it ran right off. And then in this case as well, see, it hit the middle, and then it ran right off. So keep that in mind as you learn about fair value gaps. But yeah, there's a lot to it, and this is just the beginning. So we're on the charts now. Right over here is what you would call a fair value gap. Price ran way too fast at the 12 p.m. candle, and we draw with the rectangle tool from the low to the high. Right here is the low of the fair value gap, as this is the highest point that the wick reached, and right here is the highest part of the fair value gap, as this is the low of the high candle of the gap. And we stretch it out, and you can see how price came right back into the fair value gap and then continued to deliver away towards our draw. And in this case, our draw from this gap was these highs, so you can see how price ran there. Fair value gaps are super simple. You just draw it out, and then you slowly learn the phenomenon and gain intuition through it. Now this is an example of a bullish, and now we're gonna hop in and do an example of a bearish. Here is an example of a fair value gap that you would use bearishly, as the fair value gap is above where we are currently trading, and we want to see price go into it and come lower. The gap is simply the body that wicks that haven't gone through. So right over here we go up into the gap, boom, in the middle, and then we just continue lower, reaching our draw. Right over here we touch our draw, and that is the delivery. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. Today's little tip in closing is try to put NQ and ES side by side. You can even throw the Dow if you want to, and draw out the same fair value gap, and you're gonna see oftentimes that there's an SMT between them. So one of them hits and the other one doesn't, and that is one of the most powerful ways you can use the fair value gaps. And then if you want it to be even more advanced, then put that CE, like I said in the video, use that line, and then look at the way we respect the top and the bottom, because sometimes NQ hits the top of the CE, like the top of the gap, and then ES only hits the bottom, and all of these are different ways. So just keep being creative, because with these gaps, like the sky's the limit. There's probably some things that you might discover that I don't even know about. But yeah, the sky's the limit. Good luck.